I found handprints in my back seat before I ever opened the door. And that's when I realized I hadn't been alone in the woods. I thought it was a prank, because when you see a bear standing perfectly upright between the trees at dusk, your brain gives you two options: run or laugh. I laughed, and that was my first mistake. At first, I actually smiled because it looked ridiculous. Too tall, too narrow, like one of those cheap mascot costumes people wear at local fairs. The fur looked matted and dark, almost wet in places. The head was slightly too big, the arms hung too low, and the whole thing had this uncanny stiffness, like a person trying very hard not to move like a person. So I waved. "Very funny," I called out. Nothing. No wave back, no laugh, no voice from inside saying, "Got you." Just that thing, standing in the trees. Then it tilted its head, slowly, not in a playful way, not curiously. It looked like it was studying me, like it had heard a sound for the first time and was trying to understand what made it. A cold feeling slid down my back. I started walking again, calmly at first, casual, like I wasn't bothered. And after maybe 10 steps, I looked back. It was closer. I know how that sounds. Distance gets weird in the woods. Light plays tricks. Trees shift your sense of space. People say that all the time. But this wasn't that. It had been behind a fallen log. Now it was in front of it. Still upright. Still silent. No branches snapping. No leaves crunching. Nothing. Just closer. That was the first moment I stopped thinking prank and started thinking leave. So I picked up my pace. The trail narrowed ahead, curving along a shallow ravine. Dry roots twisted through the dirt like veins. On one side, dense pine. On the other, a drop into shadow. I looked back again. Closer. Close enough now that I could make out details. The fur wasn't hanging loosely like a costume should. It was stretched, pulled tight over a shape beneath it that looked wrong for both a bear and a man. The shoulders were too angular, the torso too long. The arms, God, the arms, looked jointed in places they shouldn't have been. And the face. At a glance, it was a bear mask. At a second glance, it was something else. The muzzle seemed sewn in place over something alive, something pressing against it from underneath. The mouth didn't open right. The cheeks twitched. Then I saw the eyes. They weren't plastic. They weren't empty. They blinked. I stopped dead on the trail. So did it. For 1 second, maybe 2, neither of us moved. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear blood thudding in my ears. And then, from somewhere deeper in the woods to my left, I heard a sound. A short, wet exhale. Like there was more than one. That's when I realized something even worse than being followed. I had only been watching the one I could see. I turned and walked faster, then faster than that. My backpack bounced against my spine. Branches slapped my shoulders. The last of the sunlight was draining out of the sky, and the woods were changing color around me. Blue, gray, black. Every few seconds I looked over my shoulder. Each time it was there. Not running, not charging, just keeping pace. Silent. If you've ever been in the woods at dusk, You know how sound usually works. Even in quiet, there's something. Insects, wind, a twig crack. The small background noise that tells you the world is normal. But this was the kind of silence people write folklore about. The kind hunters fear. The kind old park rangers talk about when they say, if the forest goes quiet, pay attention. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe a stalker in a costume. Maybe a sick person. Maybe someone filming reactions for a channel. People do insane things for attention now. There are entire corners of the internet built on harmless scares. But harmless doesn't follow you for half a mile without making a sound. Harmless doesn't blink like that. The trail split ahead, left toward the overlook, right toward the parking lot. I took the right, and as I did, I heard it behind me for the first time. Not footsteps, a rustle, like heavy fabric dragging over bark. Then a low sound, not a growl, not human speech, something in between, like a voice trying to remember how words worked. I ran. I didn't think about stamina, didn't think about the dark, didn't think about falling, just ran. Roots caught my boots, branches clawed my arms. My lungs burned almost instantly, and my heartbeat turned into one giant hammer blow inside my chest. I risked one look back. It was no longer walking. It was gliding between the trees in long, unnatural bursts. The costume, or skin, or whatever it was, brushing the trunks as it moved. And for a flash, just one horrible flash, I saw its hand. Not a paw, a hand. Too long, too pale under the fur. Fingers flexing inside the split seam of the suit. I nearly tripped. The parking lot had to be close. It had to be. That's the trick fear plays on you. It stretches distance, makes every trail feel endless, every shadow occupied. Then, through the trees, I saw a dull shape catching the last scraps of light. My car. I hit the gravel so hard I almost slid. Fumbled my keys, dropped them, swore. Grabbed them with shaking hands and yanked the door open. I threw myself inside, slammed the lock down, then hit the button for all 4 doors like that would somehow make it safer. For a second, all I could do was gasp. My whole body shook. My chest hurt. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I looked up. The tree line was still. Nothing moved. No bear, no man in a suit, nothing. And that should have made me feel better. It didn't. Because predators don't always chase. Sometimes they wait. I started the engine. The dashboard lit up the interior in a weak green glow. My phone was on the passenger seat, dead quiet, no service, exactly like before. I remember laughing then, not because anything was funny, because adrenaline does weird things when it doesn't know where to go. I actually said out loud, "Okay, great, fine, you're fine." Then I checked the rearview mirror and saw the back seat. Mud. At first, that was all my brain registered. Just dark, wet smears on the fabric. Then the shape of them clicked into place. Prints. Not shoe prints, not boot marks, not anything made by someone climbing in like a normal person. These were pressed deep into the seat cushion. 2 heavy impressions side by side, and streaked between them, dragged across the upholstery, was wet dirt mixed with pine needles, like something had been sitting there for a long time, quietly, behind me, watching, waiting. Every muscle in my body locked. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because some animal part of me became absolutely certain that if I looked directly into the back seat, I wouldn't be alone. The interior smelled wrong. Not like my car, not like sweat or old coffee or damp clothes. It smelled earthy, sour, like wet fur left too long in a sealed room. And underneath that, rot. My phone screen lit up. I almost screamed. No ringtone, no vibration warning, just the screen flashing to life. No signal, still no bars. But there was a message. One new text from an unknown number. 3 words. You left too early. I stared at it so hard my vision blurred. Then another message started typing. The bubble appeared, stopped, appeared again, stopped. Like whoever or whatever was on the other end was thinking. I threw the car into reverse and floored it. Gravel spit out behind me. The tires fishtailed. I nearly hit the trail sign backing out, then jerked into the road and drove faster than I ever have in my life. The whole time, I kept expecting to see something rise in the mirror, a shape unfolding from the back seat, a bare head lifting slowly into frame. But the seat stayed empty. Empty except for the mud. And that was somehow worse. Because if it wasn't in the car anymore, when had it gotten out? I didn't go home first. I drove straight to a gas station 20 miles away. The first place with bright lights, cameras, people. I parked under the canopy, jumped out, and yanked open the back door. Nothing. No creature. No costume. No person curled on the floor. Just the smell. The mud. And one more thing I hadn't seen before. A single coarse strand of dark, synthetic-looking fur snagged under the headrest. I say synthetic-looking because that's what I wanted it to be. Fake. Explainable. Cheap costume material from some lunatic in the woods. But when I picked it up, it stretched. Not like plastic, more like hair. Attached at one end to something pale and translucent, almost like a strip of skin. I dropped it immediately. The cashier came outside because, apparently, I'd been standing there under the lights for over a minute without moving. He asked if I was okay. I almost told him everything. Instead, I heard myself say, "Yeah, animal got in my car somehow." He looked in the back seat, frowned, and said something I still think about. "Animal?" Then he looked at me. "Man, those are handprints." I didn't answer. I got back in the car and drove home with every light on inside, music blasting, mirrors angled away. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak in my apartment sounded deliberate. Every passing headlight looked like movement outside the curtains. I checked the locks 3 times, then 5. Then I dragged a chair under the doorknob, even though I knew that was stupid. At 2:14 a.m., my phone lit up again. Unknown number. No image. No profile. Just another message.
Sign right here, please.
You waved first. I blocked the number.
And initial
A minute
this section
later,
here.
another text came from a different one that was polite. By morning, I had 14 messages. Most were short. Almost understood you. You run strangely. The car was warm. I know your smell now. I changed my number that same day. I filed a report, though I left out the parts that sounded insane.
We have nothing.
I said someone in the
witness is
costume
gone,
had followed me
and
through
there
the
are no
woods
trail camera
and
images.
somehow gotten into my vehicle.
Then it's over.
The officer took notes, nodded, and gave me the kind of look people give you when they're trying to decide whether you're mistaken, lying, or just shaken. A week later, they called me back. No cameras on the trail, no witnesses, no similar complaints. But there was one thing. A ranger had found something near the split in the path. An old bear costume head, torn open from the inside. I asked to see a photo. I wish I hadn't. The mask was caked with mud and pine sap. One eye socket was empty. The other still had something inside it. Not an eyeball, a human contact lens. That should have helped. It should have made everything simpler. A person, a disguise, a sick game. But it didn't explain the silence. It didn't explain the handprints in the back seat before I ever opened the rear door. And it definitely didn't explain the final message that came through 2 nights later on my new number from no contact at all. No notification sound, just the screen glowing in the dark beside my bed. I liked the bear better too. I moved after that. Different town, different apartment, new routines, new trails. Well, no, not trails. I don't hike alone anymore. Honestly, I barely go near tree lines at sunset. Sometimes I can laugh about pieces of it. The part where I waved especially. That stupid, cheerful little wave like I was greeting a street performer. But every now and then, when I'm driving at night, I catch a shape in the rearview mirror that looks too tall, too still, too dark around the edges. And I have to remind myself to breathe. Because maybe it was a man in a costume. Maybe it was a predator who liked theater. Maybe it was something worse. Something wearing the idea of a bear the same way people wear smiles to hide what they are. I only know 2 things for sure. The eyes were real, and I'm never going back to those woods. Because I don't think it lives there anymore. If this story got under your skin, let me know in the comments. What would you have done when it waved, or didn't? And if you want more cinematic stories like this, subscribe. Just maybe, don't watch the next one alone at night.